بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. So, just a quick recap from yesterday. We are discussing maf'ul ma'ahu. Yes? And we said maf'ul ma'ahu is that word which comes after a waw, provided that waw is in a meaning of with, along with ma'a. Okay? And it must be preceded by a verb. Okay? Now, what he's discussing here is that there are some scenarios where you can have a choice between making the word after the waw. You make the waw harful atf, or you make the waw in the meaning of maf'ul ma'ahu. So you either make it ma'atuf or maf'ul ma'ahu. You have a choice. So what he's saying is that he's discussing the places where you have a choice and places where you don't have a choice, you have to make it maf'ul ma'ahu, or where you have to make it ma'atuf. Okay? So the first scenario he's saying is, if you have a jumla, fa'iliyah, because of the fa'il, and the fa'il is actually there in lafz, you can actually see it there in writing. Yes? Okay? فَإِنْ كَانَ الْفَعْلُ لَفْظًا, if the verb is what? لفظا. It's actually there in wording. وجاز العطف. وجاز العطف. And atf is permissible. You have a scenario where the fa'il is there, you have a waw, and the maf'ul ma'ahu meaning is possible, and the atf is also possible. So if the atf is possible, there's no prohibition from a meaning perspective, and there's no prohibition from an i'rab perspective. يجوز فيه الرفع والنصب. And I said yesterday, for example, you have here, جئت أنا وزيد وأنا وزيدا. In here, you can do both options. What can you do? You can say here, option number one is you make Zaydun ma'tuf. And you make waw harful atf. Correct? Option number two, you say Zayd is what? Maf'ulun ma'ahu. And the waw is wawul ma'iyah. Correct? So ji'tu ana wa zaydun or ji'tu ana wa zaydan. Because why? The atf is permissible and also maf'ul ma'ahu is permissible, so you can do both. This is according to linguistically. If, for example, meaning-wise, you want to emphasize or you want to make it clear that Zayd came with me at the same time, then you will use wa zaydan. Because remember, to maf'ul ma'ahu, the benefit of maf'ul ma'ahu is that it explicitly tells you that both are happening at the same time. So for example, if you look at it from let's leave the i'rab perspective, let's look at meaning perspective. If I say, for example, جاء زيد وخالد. جاء زيد فخالد. جاء زيد ثم خالد. And at the top we'll have here, جاء زيد وخالدا. What does جاء زيد وخالدا mean? خالدا becomes مفعول معه same time. جاء زيد وخالد both came same time or not, we don't know. جاء زيد فخالد, one came first and the other one came a bit later. جاء زيد ثم خالد, Zayd came first, then Khalid came after a significant time. So you have three ways of saying it, but they all have a slight difference. You following? So what he's saying here in terms of grammar, it is permissible grammatically to use both of them, but obviously, depending on what your intended meaning is, you will have a choice for one of them. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay. If you have a scenario where the fa'il is mentioned in the sentence, it is very clear and explicit the verb is mentioned. وَإِن لَمْ يَجُزِ الْأَتْفِ. The fa'il is mentioned, but the atf is not permissible. Either because the meaning will be misinterpreted. There's no example of such in here, so we don't need to discuss that. But I just mentioned to you for your own note. But if the atf is not permissible because of grammatical purposes, as is mentioned here, then you must make it maf'ul ma'ahu. For example, ji'tu wa zaydan. Here you have to make this maf'ul ma'ahu because, as I said to you yesterday, it is not permissible to do atf of a zamir. It's not permissible to make the ma'tuf alay a zamir muttasil, marfu muttasil. You have to say ji'tu ana wa zaydun. When you have J2, you can't make that ma'tuf alayhi the 2. Okay?
But can't you say there is mahzuf there?
No, you can't do that. Can't make ma'tuf everywhere. Okay? You following? If the fa'il is not mentioned, now you have to remember what's happened there. Now this second section here is because there are a few. So until now, what rules we mentioned, we discussed, were common standard rules applicable everywhere, and there's no major issues. Now there are a few examples with the Arab use where there's not a fa'il. So we say, oh, there's a ma'na al-fa'il involved to fit those few parables or few proverbs that they use, or few sayings that they have used. So what he's saying here, if the fa'il is a ma'na, meaning the fa'il is not literally mentioned, but you you interpret it or you assume it to be a verb. What happens then? Two scenarios. If at is permissible, at is not permissible. If at is permissible, then you have, so if the fa'il is not mazkur, but the fa'il is what? Ma'nan. Then what do you have to do? If the atf is permissible, you have to keep it as atf. For example, ma li zaydin wa amrin. Here you must do what? Here we must make it wa atf. Don't worry about that, okay? Don't worry about it, just leave it, okay? Yeah. So ma li zaydin wa amrin. So in this scenario, because I told you the rule is, you can't say, atf is permissible. Lam is harfun jar. Zayd wa amrin is what? Ma'tuf alayhi and ma'tuf. Correct? Is atf permissible? Yes, it is permissible. So because atf is permissible, it's better to use what? The atf. Where there's no fail. Is there a fail before ma li zaydin wa amrin? No. Correct? وَإِن لَمْ يَجُزِ الْأَطْفِ. If atf is not there, then what do you have to use? Nasab. يَتَعَيَّنَ النَّصْبُ. You have to do what? Nasab. For example, مَا لَكَ وَزَيْدًا وَمَا شَأْنُكَ وَأَمْرًا. مَا شَأْنُكَ وَأَمْرًا. Okay? Now here, there's no fail, is there? Is there a fail in مَا لَكَ وَزَيْدًا? No. Is there a fail in مَا شَأْنُكَ وَأَمْرًا? No. Now, because that is the case, what will happen now? We say here, now can you make ma laka wa zaydan, can you make that, can you do atf? You can't do atf. Why? When you have a harfun jar and the majroor is a zamir, it's not permissible to make the zamir the ma'tuf alay and make that ma'tuf. It's not permissible. You can say ma laka wa li zaydin, not ma laka wa zaydun, ma laka wa zaydin. So because atf is not permissible in this example, we have to do what? We have to make this maf'ul ma'ahu. I said before, this one, see this whole section, it's not too important. It's like, it doesn't come that often. What I mentioned before this was enough. Here's a bit more additional stuff. وَمَا شَأْنُكَ وَأَمْرًا. Again, you can't do atfan this because the meaning will spoil. I can explain that to you, but it's the reason he's saying it. So here, lafzan, or here from, you can say here, for example, from a Nahw perspective, you can't do atf because of the harfun jar and the atf. Here, a meaning perspective, you can't do atf. Because when I'm saying ma sha'nuka wa amran, I'm not asking you what is your condition, what is Amr's condition. I'm asking you what is the matter with you, what's your beef with him? What's your issue with him? So if I say ma sha'nuka wa sha'nu amri, ya ma sha'nuka wa amrin, what is your matter, what is Amr's matter? I'm not asking about two separate people or two individuals' issue. I'm asking with your issue with Amr. So because I have to say wa amran here, because you have, atf is not permissible. And there's a long discussion between Sabawi and the other scholars. What is a mahzuf? Is it tasna'u? Is it kana? So it's not that. It's not again not for this risala, this mubtadi book. And he says here, what's the ma'na? لأن المعنى ما تصنع. Okay, that's enough for now. If you're interested in a long 2-3 page discussion, it's in Awdhul Masalik. Okay, so malaka wa zaydan, and even someone says, no, is it ma tasna'u or is it ma kana? So for now, we're just saying here, the fa'il is ma'nan. And because of that, you have to, if there's no atf, you have to make it mansoob. Here you can't make atf because of the grammatical reasons. Here you can't make atf because of meaning reasons. And this is the bahas he's mentioned here, which I don't think personally belongs in this mukhtasar book, or this mubtadi book. Okay? So a summary, the fa'il is madhkur. The fa'il will, remember, maf'ul ma'ahu only comes after the fa'il. Either it's there in wording or it's there in meaning. If it's there in wording, you check, is atf permissible? If atf is permissible, you can do both. Rafa and nasab. If atf is not permissible, then you have to do nasab. If the fa'il is ma'nan, then an atf is permissible. Then you do atf, you don't do maf'ul ma'ahu. And if atf is not permissible, then you have to do what? Nasab as maf'ul ma'ahu. Okay? Yes? So the main thing is the main thing that you need to know about this maf'ul ma'ahu is the first part. This additional stuff is not at this level, it's unnecessary. You need to know this, you need to know this part, bas. This. If maf'ul ma'ahu is what is mentioned after waw. The waw has the meaning as along with, and it shows you that the word after the maf'ul waw occurs along with the word before waw. For example, bard and jubbat occurred together. The question is, why not make it ma'atuf? Because when you make it ma'atuf, there's a possibility of ta'khir and taqdeem. There's no togetherness clearly mentioned. When you say, well, jubbati, you make it maf'ul ma'ahu, you mean that the winter came at the same time as the coats. As soon as winter comes out, coats. As soon as I came with Zayd, we came together, nobody came first or second. We came at the same time. This is the key elements in this discussion. And the others are just za'id, which is useful or interesting for a muntahi, not for a mubtadi. Subhanallah, bihamdi, subhanakallahumma wa bihamdika, wa nashhadu an la ilaha illa anta wa nastaghfiruka.